Hello everybody, and we are continuing with our big topic of halftones. Today I will speak a little bit about the choice of instrument. There is a quite a spread opinion that on playing holes with a bigger diameter it's easier to play halftones, at least on early stages of your halftones practice. And I would agree with that. Every maker has his own style of making his instruments. Some makers have smaller dimensions, some makers have bigger dimensions of the playing holes, of the throat of the duduk, of the main canal. So these are my two duduks in the key of A. And you see, the playing holes have a different diameter. One of them is MKS, another one is Arthur Grigorian. Both of them I like very much. Different dimensions have also different pros and cons to them. For me, it doesn't matter right now how big is the playing hole. I can play on both bigger and smaller playing hole diameters, those halftones I mean, but for you on early stages it could be better to get a little bit bigger playing holes. So I will not speak out many names because I want to stay politically correct. If you want to ask me in a private talk about what I think about this or that maker, just contact me privately. Every professional duduk player can play halftones on any duduk, by the way, on any professional duduk, okay? It doesn't matter how big or how small are the playing holes. My next advice about choice of the instrument today would be stick to one duduk maker only on your early stages of halftones practice. You can play your favorite melodies or whatever you practice on duduk, jumping from one maker to another, but when you really decide, okay, now I will practice my halftones, stick to only one maker. If you don't like your karunaduduk from that maker, let's say right now, try another one, because every maker has his own unique tools of making halftones. I think those tools, by the way, they are keeping them very secretly and they don't allow me to take pictures of them, because you cannot buy those tools for making duduk somewhere in the shop. You know, you have to design them yourselves and you have to make them yourselves, not even giving it to some guy somewhere in the garage, and they keep it secret. So those tools for making halftones, I think they have this cone shape, and those cone shapes are a little bit different from maker to maker. That's why with one maker halftones sound better than with the other, and you might prefer this comparing to that one. So if you don't like your current one, you can try another one, and then you choose between them. Choose only one and stick to it while practicing halftones on your early stages. Let's say I am learning a new composition and this composition is difficult, and I decided, okay, this composition I will play on this instrument, on this maker, and then I stick to this instrument for 2 or 3 weeks, depending on how difficult is the composition I'm learning right now. And then when after that time, after 2 weeks, let's say, again I come to my another duduk from another maker, then for one day I have difficulties with halftones. So that's why I say on your early stages stick to one only. Next advice I have for you, if you are really desperate, you can try, of course, a chromatic duduk. If you are not aware, there are chromatic duduks where the playing holes on the notes which have those halftones, they are split into two. You don't have a big one, you have two small ones. And if you want to play a full tone, full note, you close it with one finger only. And then when you want to play a halftone, you just vertically open it to the next one. And in this case, you will be always correct with halftones. Of course, it also has some pros and cons. We're compromising here. It is more difficult to close the full tone here in such case. It will take you a little bit of training, but then after a couple of days you are good on closing full tone, and then the half tones are like always perfect. You can do it and you can go for it. Just for a change, you can try it. If you don't like, you can sell it later. Especially if you need a really reliable half tones, you are gonna play before people and you cannot afford yourself to make mistakes. You can have chromatic duduk for this purpose. My next advice is about reeds. For the half tones practice, take a softer reed. Just if even the reed is already worked out, is not in good condition, is already buzzy or something like that, you want to throw it away, but it is the softest reed that you have, take it for half tones practice, keep it. You are practicing by yourself, and practicing half tones, as I said before, it's about many repetitions, about multiple repetitions and not about sound quality. Then later switch to your good reed, but if you need to play for some time, because it's not enough to play for 5 minutes, you need really time, and for this you need to be able to be capable to play it a little bit longer. My next advice, if you are out of tune, it's much better to be flatter than sharper. Especially in the Eastern music, when you are a little bit flatter than a note or a half note or a half tone, it will even sound a bit more mystical, let's say, like a bit more mysterious, especially if you do it consciously. Like at some points you can just go a little bit flatter. Sometimes Jivan Gasparian would play like that. In some compositions where there is just a half tone, he just gives it a little bit flatter. It's better to sound flatter, believe me. And in 99.9% of all cases of you being out of tune on a half tone, you are sharper because you move your finger too much. No. So that's why my suggestion here is that you consciously give a command to your mind, starting from now, that you will move your finger less than you are doing now, currently. Just every time, while playing any halftone, approaching any halftone, move your finger less. You would say, oh, then I will be flatter. Okay, but in most cases you will not be flatter, but you will be correct. You see this note? This note, it could be flatter here. Despite it's flatter than it is written on music sheets, it sounds nice. Even this, the first note here. Another suggestion I can give to you concerning the choice of instrument. There are duduk makers who, on a regular basis or from time to time, use sandpaper to sort of round these playing holes. In my case, in case of MKS and Arthur Grigorian, if you look closely, the edges of every playing hole are sharp. They are not rounded, as I am speaking now about this different technique of processing the edges of playing holes. But some makers, they just do a sort of kind of deepening here, so that the playing holes are not that sharp. If you touch it with your finger, they are not sharp, they are rounded. And not only they are rounded from inside here, but even the surface which is close to the playing hole is also a bit sandpaper. Once I had to send a couple of MKS duduks, and one of them had those rounded edges here, and on that duduk the half tones were easier to play. And even I reported this to Karen. I said, Karen, look, this rounding, it's a good thing for halftones. And he was like really surprised, or he just pretended to be surprised. Normally, by default, Karen never does this rounding here, and his edges are sharp. But if he made it once, he can make it twice. I'm not sure about Arthur, because Arthur is more following his own tradition. His father never did it, so Arthur also has never done it, this rounding. I'm not sure if Arthur would even agree to do that, because it will change the outer look of the instrument a little bit. It will not look the same as all other his instruments. But some makers are more flexible in this, and yeah, according to my experience, these rounded, sandpapered edges help to play halftones easier, more correct. Since we tend to play halftones sharper, I can give you a tip how you can secure your flatter pitch. Look, have you ever asked yourself why we play the note of F sharp with a fork here? I mean, why we don't play it like this, but we play it This is because this note, if you open it here, just the open note, if you open it here without fork, without bringing back the ring finger here, it tends to be sharper. That's why, to secure the pitch, make it a little bit flatter, we sort of shade it, but we shade it not on the same hole, like shading with this same finger here. We close the next lower note. Listen to the difference. I'm not doing anything with this note. I'm not shading it here to bring the pitch down, but I'm closing the next hole. The same trick you can use also for halftones. Since we tend to play them sharper, you can use the next finger to bring the pitch down a little bit. For example, this halftone here on this note. That means if you play, for example, this halftone, having your finger here closed or just strongly shadowed. So if you close it, the shadowing will happen stronger. If you don't close it but just are hanging over it, it will be less shadowed. Like this you can control your halftone. Also you can help yourself by keeping the finger on the halftone position almost all the time. I mean, let's say we're playing shushtar. For example, here, when you play on the upper notes, let's say here, the halftone here on the note of C. If you have difficulties of finding it at the right time, opening it correctly, just keep the finger there. See, first of all, I keep my finger here closed. The hole is closed. Like this, I'm pitching down a little bit this halftone, and also I'm having my finger on the next halftone, not moving. For this, it's very important to keep your fingers relaxed, because if you will imply too much control here, holding the halftone in the same position, your hand will be very stiff, will be very inflexible. This I guarantee to you. So if you want to use this trick to keep the finger on the halftone staying, keep this hand relaxed, like very, very relaxed. So keep this halftone very softly. You see, if the finger is not relaxed and you are holding it strongly, like trying not to lose this halftone from here, you better don't do it, because it will make you stiff so much that the disadvantage of this will be much bigger than the advantage. My next advice is about the technique itself. of opening halftone. There are basically like 3 versions, I would say. Some musicians open it in a horizontal way. Another one is to open it in a vertical direction. In Armenia, I met musicians who do it in this way or in that way, depending on the school, of course. And also I met musicians who do it in a mixed way between horizontal and vertical. And I am tending to be one of them because I realized that this opening like this, so it's not and it's not, but it's kind of, I'm a little bit rotating my finger, doing this like that, and it goes in a diagonal direction. You see? And I'm not doing only this here, but also I'm keeping these 2 fingers together. Especially on this halftone, it's quite important. First of all, if you keep these 2 fingers together, the middle finger and the ring finger on this halftone, you see? First of all, the next finger, the ring finger, would shadow a little bit this halftone here, because we are not closing the hole completely. It's just anatomically, it's not comfortable to follow the previous advice I gave you, like opening here and having here closed so that you shadow, or like shadowing it really strongly. But if you keep those 2 fingers together, then anatomically it feels comfortable. Even the little finger kind of comes together to this group. Diagonal and shadowing with this ring finger, which comes in tandem together with the middle finger. And also the movement is a little bit rotating like this. It's much more comfortable than doing it and keeping this ring finger apart, aloof from this middle finger, you see? Because in this case I feel more tension in the hand, but if you stick them together, it's sort of is very anatomically comfortable, and also shadowing the pitch a bit, which is necessary for us who tended to make it sharper. Another important thing is about the lips position. Comparing just the normal position when you play full tones and when you play half tones is a bit different. As I noticed. You see, I'm moving down my jaw a little bit. When I play fast, my teacher told me that halftones need more space. How to describe it better, I don't know. Just understand this concept of giving space to a note with your lips, with the mouth position. When we play notes sharper than needed, what is behind it? Behind it is your lips position, with lips pressing too much onto the reed. Here we are trying to relax the control over the reed, kind of let go of the reed, still keeping it with our lips, just very, very, very close to the edge of the reed, really like keeping it here. This gives more space to the reed, this gives a fuller sound, and this gives us a flatter pitch of every note, but especially of the halftone. Every time I do it, I just kind of give more of space. It's hard to formulate it in different words. My teacher told me like this, and I convey it to you in the same way.